Dreams.
Well Productions.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's your boy Dr3am Williams with the Well Productions, and I'm back at it again with another episode of the Beat Logs of Discipline. Thank you guys for tuning in today. I really appreciate you guys from the last episode of the Beat Logs of Discipline. That was really dope. I think you guys are awesome. Like I tell you every time I get on the cameras, you guys are awesome. But today I want to do something a little different. No, every day is a little different, right? So today I'm gonna attack something I never attacked before. I've never done it before. I don't even know how to freaking do it right properly. But this episode I'm gonna be doing an episode about about trap. And I'm not talking about just any kind of trap. EDM Trap. And EDM stands for electronic dance music. If you guys hadn't heard the big crazes going around with everybody doing the song either sampled or they're doing a remix or if they're doing their own popular stuff that they're doing, EDM Trap is like a big thing. And one of my followers by the name of Shadow Balls, awesome name by the way, he said that he would like for me to do a EDM Trap piece, so I'm gonna jump right into it. Alright, first thing I should say about this is the fact that when you do an EDM Trap, from what I understand, it's a lot of electronic sounds, a lot of synthesizers, mostly a lot of sequences, a lot of broken up patterns and stuff like that to kind of give it that effect of just kind of catches you off guard. There's important features that are part of this. And you know me, I don't ever take it the traditional way. So the first part that I should give you guys a preview to is the fact that they have an intro to it. Introduction to whatever they do is start it all up. The next part of the beat would be the actual verse. Whatever they're doing as far as like the part that somebody would rap on. The part that really has the emphasis of the trap part of the beat. Then it's the build up, working up towards the climax of the piece, and it gets you right to the peak, to the very tippy top, to the peak, to the peak, to the peak, to the peak, and then hits you with the drop, which is like the most important, significant part of the EDM trap revolution, is the drop. It's what everybody does. Bauer, Diplo, all these people who are very influential in this new era. That's what makes it significant, is the drop. So, because like I said, I went about it my way, I'm gonna give you an understanding of what I did. Just a little slight tutorial on how you go about it, featuring moi. So, to do this project, I did it a little different. I wanted to challenge myself even more. So what I did was I used a sample in my EDM trap piece. So, and you'll get that soon. So I'm gonna start with the introduction to you guys. Turn the keyboard on. All right. But instead of having an octave, I have it up an octave. So it kind of gives you an emphasis, and it's a reverb on top of it. A lot of things give it space. Space is another core element to a lot of EDM people, is having that open space to have you feel like you're in a vast area. So reverb is your best friend. When in doubt, put reverb on it. Doesn't rhyme, but it's very important. So that's how I started it off. Now the next part of the beat is I have this little clap featured. Well, not a clap. I use, like I said, okay, the sample that I use is Kanye West's Power Song, but I only use the sample of the sample. So the sample is 21st Century Shitsu Man, I think. I'm not sure what the actual name of it is, but it's that sequence where the people are yelling, doing the chants, like, ah. That's probably wrong, but you know what? It's that part of the beat that I have featured in my beat. So this is the sound that I used, basically. But instead of having down there, I have it up octaves. Alright, now with that over top of it, which is this. So boom, that's that piece, that's that particular part of it. Now we're leading into the next part of my introduction. For this part, I added two new elements. I told you guys I've been a big fan. The last episode I used the claves. use the rhythm sticks now to kind of emphasis. The rhythm sticks now have a delay on it, slight delay with some reverb to kind of push it all together. So. Boom, right there. And how I made it even better was, you know, you can't go wrong. You need this particular element to go on to the next part of the beat. At least what I did was I added the kick drum. It's low, it's stuffy, it has no real high frequencies into it. It's just really there for the punch, the significant punch to it. So boom. So now that particular part is my introduction, and that's going to lead into my verse. So the best way I figured to lead into the verse would be for me to allow it to have a kind of a build-up. So this is my build-up into the verse. Boom, boom. So then I take the same elements that I had before, and now you heard that sound that I had featured for the actual introduction, that particular like da 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 da. I put that in the bass. So now when you get into the next part of the introduction, which is I want to consider I'm not this part of introduction. I consider my verse, which is this. It's the same sound, but it's so low the frequencies are spread out. When they're spread out at that low frequency, it kind of gives it a new kind of timbre. So now the new timbre with that associated with the bass drum that I have, not the bass drum, but associated with the kicks that I have featured with it, it makes it sound so much more dope. So that particular bass drum, not bass but kick, I have that going on, and it sounds like this. While I did that, what I did was I had that same sound that I had before, the Kanye West, the shrieking type sound, the chorus, the chairs, which is this. I have that particular sound over top of all that. So it was. And then leading back into it, so I kind of had that stuff in the beginning introduction. I fed it out after the rising peak of that particular part of the climax into this particular verse. Now I have that all going back down. So now I went back down, and now it's going into claps. I'm gonna have some claps, which is this. The stuffy reverb with a little bit of compression on top of that. And I have this particular sound that I had before, which is the over top of it. So now, boom. What I'm gonna do for you guys is I'm gonna play those two parts, all three parts, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, with the kick. And this is what it sounds like. And this is my verse. Empty space is good. I told you space is good, and that's what the reverb adds to this piece. Now what I have here is I have a cymbal crash in reverse, which you hear in a lot of people's music, but it helps to kind of give you the anticipation into the climax of the piece. Now what I'm going to do is show you I have this bottle hit that kind of goes, it starts off slow, and it speeds up dramatically into the next part of my beat. So this is my verse, remember my verse. Like that, right? It's very in your face. You're anticipating the drop, but you know I'm not gonna drop it because the whole thing and part of this whole entire feature, part of this whole entire movement is to lead you up to that drop. So every single significant part starts off small. It gets a little bit bigger. It gets a little bit bigger. It gets a little bit bigger. It gets a lot bigger. Then it hits you like a hammer when that drop hits. So what I did, like I told you, I featured those particular parts of the song. Now, the sample that I use for my next part is, it's a sample, it's actually Kanye West's voice featured over top of a part of the song that's kind of on the end of the song, like almost like a bridge. So this is what that particular sound sounds like. I love that part of the song. It sounds so musical. It sounds so like, it sounds very, very church-esque, like triumphant. So what I did was I went behind myself and I played that. I sat down and I learned it until I got it down. So and that's played underneath that. It's played right underneath that. So here's what that sound together. It sounds beautiful. It complements each other so well because they're both in a high register. It's just to kind of bring it out a little bit more, to be a little bit in your face. So now underneath that, they have this particular sound. I have this sound, which is basically it's just the bass note, bass drum of it, the bass of it all. So it's well, basically it's just outlining the chords for me to play back into the sequence. So what you hear is this. What I did after I had that sound that I had before, I found this heartbeat type sound, and I fell in love with it. So I decided to use it within this piece, and it just adds an ambient sound to it. So I'm gonna play that for you right now. That has reverb, delay, and compression on top of that. It's like clapping, like I don't know what to call that particular sound, but I found it, and I fell in love with it, and I've been using it ever since. So that whole part sounds like this. Now, what I did was to add more effect to that. I have more elements. So I added the clap that I had before. I added the sound of the sound to kind of add to give it more integrity, more direction, to keep it pushing forward. On top of that, I add another bass to it, which sounds to the sound. I added more, so it has more body to it. And now that part sounds that symbol again push you into this part of the thing. And what I did was, because I've listened to a lot of different EDM trap pieces, and there's a genre called EDM festival EDM trap. And honestly, EDM, all it is, I'm being honest, is a lot of leading until you get to where you gotta go. So this just me I'm gonna keep continuously building up to this sound that I'm trying to get, to the drop of the piece. And what I did was, instead of taking you to the drop, I misled you once again with my piece, which is really dope. What I did was I took those sounds, those noise sounds, or those synth sounds, and for this particular part, I changed the genre. So now it sounds like reggae. So I have my bass. Very bouncy, almost very reggae. Had this as a counter melody. Outlining the chords once more. Then I had that same synth line but I had that same sound that I wanted to feature before to kind of add body to it. I use that as an element to actually be the low end of this piece. So I did was to add on top of it, because you know I have the bass line, the picked bass line, I have the steady bass line filming on, and then I have that counter melody. I need an actual melody, so I used with different melody was I kind of played around with different sounds, different type of feels, and this is what I came up with. I'm not gonna lie to you, I cannot replay it. I did it once and I recorded it and it was awesome, so I had to keep it the way it was. So. And over top of the bass, I think that's like sounds like the dopest thing in the world. So I have that featured with other elements. Now what I did was now I'm leading you back into another build-up of this piece, another build-up. So this is my secondary build-up. Now I have all those elements that I had showed you guys before, but now I have some new features to the new elements, the new features to the piece. So this is one of the new features. When it's moving fast, it gives you the texture feeling that it's actually moving somewhere, it's going somewhere, it's becoming fast-paced. And those particular notes that I use are very eerie, kind of ethereal sounding chords, notes, which are featured in a chord. Going in a downward pattern. So everything's going in a downward pattern because we're about to go up. We're about to go up in the piece. With this. Still outlining the chords great. But now I'm going to add the clap, add the synth line that I had before. So I have my claps right here, featured right here, along with the counterpart, with this particular counterpart, with this synth, with this counter kind of movement piece that's really pushing it into the direction it needs to be pushed into, on top of the reggae sound, with the reggae bass sound, with the very open-ended soloist melody. And from there, I add two more elements that really push it to the push it in the right direction. I add a couple of snare sounds, which it sounds like this. And it's basically just used for direction. Just direction. Reverb on it, just direction. It pushes in the right direction. With the clap, that's all it is. Now what I added to this was I added a sine wave. It was a saw wave. A saw/sine wave. The combination of the two. I bounced it out, put it back in my system. I stretched it out, sent it out of my system, put it back in my system, added reverb, different elements to it, sent it back in my system, and put it back into my system so that it could, that sound could stay the way I needed it to stay, and then I could add my reverb and other elements to it. So this is what that sounds like, on top of the claps and the snare. Pretty dope, pretty classy. Now this is what that whole entire particular sound, the whole section sounds like. So boom. Now to feature the drop. The drop is so decent, it makes no sense. I'm in love with it. I want you guys to be in love with it too. So what I have for this, the bass part of this, is I have this particular sound. It's open, it's real loud, in your face, and it has a lot of reverb to it. So when you hear that sound, you're like, okay, that's a badass drop. Because that's what you look for. Look for the open end of sound with the bass, the kick. I mean not the kick, but the 808, which I have right here. Here's two elements of it. This is a clap. actually a yell and a clap with a stick, rhythm sticks. This bass. And what I did was I cut it down so you wouldn't be able to hear the actual, you wouldn't be able to hear the first part of the 808. You hear it on the second part. So you hear the drop right there, and it makes your heart drop to the bottom of your stomach and want to poop your heart out. Literally. But I'm joking. So once you have that part, you kind of move on from there. So one thing I featured, like I said, I did a lot of sampling for this piece. One sample that I used was actually yelling from the actual Shih Tzu Man piece. So, from Power, just that yelling, the choir yelling sound. And this is what it sounds like from the this build up until the drop. Pitched it. I did a lot of elements to it. So now you guys get the basis, at least from what I did. This is what I did, and you got the understanding of the basis of which is structured off of, which is intro, verse, build up, and then the actual drop. And it happens in succession of each other periodically throughout the piece. You have other elements like you have your you have just little core elements, significant tools that you can use to emphasize those particular movements in your piece or your body of work. Now you guys got the basis of it, and like I said, thank you guys for tuning in. It's always been a pleasure. It always will be a pleasure because I love you guys. I told somebody I was gonna show you guys a little nip clip, but I'm not gonna do that today. So thank you guys for tuning in once again. You guys are awesome. And thank you, Shadow Balls, for giving me the idea to even want to do this project. It took me a little bit to do it, but I told you I had your back. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's always a pleasure.